Death Valley. A name that conjures images of scorching heat, endless sand dunes, and a desolate beauty that's almost otherworldly. But beneath the cracked earth and relentless sun lie unsolved mysteries that have captivated and perplexed for years.
Yeah, putting the GPSs on the rocks, drilled holes in the rocks to put a GPS tracker in. The switch would be thrown and the GPS would turn on to live mode.
From lost hikers who vanished without a trace, to whispers of hidden riches buried deep within the unforgiving landscape, Death Valley's secrets are as vast as its sprawling desert floor. Even a notorious cult leader is rumored to have sought refuge here. What dark stories does Death Valley hold? Could there be more to this harsh landscape than meets the eye? Join us as we explore the chilling mysteries that haunt Death Valley. The disappearance of Paul Byron Whipkey. The mysterious disappearance of First Lieutenant Paul Byron Whipkey, a 26-year-old Army pilot, is one of the enduring enigmas of Death Valley. It all began on July 10, 1958, when Lieutenant Whipkey casually informed his fellow officers that he was stepping out for a quick drink in the nearby town. Strangely, he was next seen hours later and hundreds of miles away in Mojave, California, where he reportedly checked into a motel for reasons that remain unclear. The following day, he allegedly purchased 14 gallons of gasoline and then disappeared without a trace. The mystery deepened 5 weeks later, when California Fish and Game officers discovered his abandoned car in a remote part of Death Valley, 15 miles off the main road and 400 miles from Fort Ord. The vehicle, with the keys still in the ignition, contained his dog tags, suitcase, and other personal belongings, but there was no indication of Whipkey's whereabouts or any signs of foul play. The Army quickly labeled the incident as a straightforward case of desertion and later claimed that Whipkey had died after wandering into the desert from his car. However, there was no evidence to support this theory, and Whipkey's brother, Carl, was deeply skeptical. Carl noted the Army's hasty efforts to pack up Whipkey's belongings the day after his disappearance, which he found highly suspicious. He expressed that discovering the Army packing up his brother's clothes so quickly after his disappearance made him extremely anxious and distrustful. The Whipkey family has never accepted the Army's explanation. They suspect a cover-up, especially after Carl's Freedom of Information Act request revealed that all related files had been inexplicably destroyed in 1977. Carl Whipkey has since maintained that the government knows more than it has revealed about his brother's fate. He stated that there were many unanswered questions, and that he would be satisfied even if the Army admitted they could not disclose information for security reasons. However, he insisted that until such an admission was made, the family could not rule anything out. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged. Some speculate that Whipkey might have been a secret agent who knew too much, or a test subject for a military experiment. Others suggest he might have been exposed to nerve gas or atomic tests and subsequently silenced. Even more outlandish theories propose he was abducted by aliens. Adding to the intrigue, shortly before his disappearance, Whipkey developed strange black moles and warts, and frequently complained of feeling unwell. His personality also changed and he became nervous and uptight. Furthermore, many of his teeth had been removed and replaced with dentures, a puzzling detail that adds another layer of mystery. What really happened to Paul Byron Whipkey remains unknown. Despite various theories, no definitive evidence has surfaced, and with all records on the case apparently lost, the truth continues to elude us. The disappearance of Castaneda's inner circle. The spring of 1998 painted a chilling picture in Los Angeles. It wasn't just the disappearance of 5 women that sent shivers down spines, but the backdrop against which it all unfolded. These women, far from ordinary, were deeply entwined with the world of Carlos Castaneda, a Peruvian-born writer and philosopher who had become a controversial figure in the New Age movement. Castaneda's rise to fame began in the 1970s and 80s as a University of California anthropology graduate student. He authored a series of non-fiction books that captivated readers with tales of ancient mystical knowledge supposedly passed down from Native American shamans. Titles like The Teachings of Don Juan, A Yaqui Way of Knowledge, and Journey to Ixtlan became bestsellers, despite facing criticism for their fantastical elements. But Castaneda wasn't just a writer, he was a showman. He cultivated a reputation as a recluse, leading a group that many considered a cult. This movement, founded in 1973, revolved around tensegrity, a set of practices Castaneda claimed were based on ancient shamanic secrets. Tensegrity workshops and seminars became all the rage, drawing in curious minds across the country. Central to this mystique were the Witches, a secretive group of women who formed Castaneda's inner circle. Details about them were scarce. They used aliases, avoided photographs, and were said to be deeply involved in Castaneda's teachings. Visions quests, communication with animals, and elaborate rituals. These were the whispers that surrounded the witches. Then, in 1998, tragedy struck. Castaneda succumbed to liver cancer, but the strangeness didn't end there. Shortly after, 5 of the witches, Florinda Donner Grau, Taisha Abelar, Amalia Marquez, Kylie Lundahl, and Patricia Lee Parton, vanished without a trace, one after another. The only shred of evidence was Patricia Lee Parton's abandoned car, found in the desolate Panamint dunes of Death Valley. Years later, a horrifying discovery offered a glimpse into the fate of one of the missing women. Hikers stumbled upon Patricia Lee Parton's remains, half buried in the desert sands. The cause of death remained a mystery, a cruel twist mirroring the circumstances of her disappearance. A former follower soon emerged with a theory as unsettling as the desert heat. He claimed that Castaneda had once spoken to Parton about achieving a state of ascending to infinity. The method involved driving a car into the heart of the desert at breakneck speed. A morbid metaphor for enlightenment, perhaps, but for Parton, it turned deadly. She drove, she didn't ascend, and she succumbed to the harsh realities of the desert. The other witches remain unaccounted for. Theories abound. Did they too succumb to the harsh embrace of Death Valley, driven by a belief in suicide as a path to enlightenment? Castaneda's alleged praise for self-termination fueled this speculation. Some even claimed the witches themselves scouted locations in Death Valley as potential suicide sites. One such location stood eerily close to where Parton's remains were found. So, did these women, disillusioned or desperate, choose to end their lives in the vast emptiness of Death Valley? Or are they still out there, lost in the vast emptiness? The answer, like the sands of the desert, blows ever out of reach. The disappearance of Ryan Singleton. Another unsettling disappearance and death occurred in Death Valley in July 2013. This time, it involved 24-year-old Ryan Singleton, who was a former model and aspiring actor from Atlanta, Georgia. Singleton set out for a short vacation to Los Angeles, where he decided to rent a car and drive to Las Vegas. On July 9, 2013, while returning from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, Singleton's car broke down near the small town of Baker, in the harsh environment of the Mojave Desert. He got out of his car and began walking along the highway towards Baker. Reportedly, a highway patrol officer picked him up and gave him a ride into town. Once there, Singleton called a friend from a gas station, then sat down in the oppressive heat to wait for his friend's arrival. However, when his friend arrived, Singleton was nowhere to be found. A massive search effort ensued, but Singleton was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until 74 days later, on September 21st, that his body was discovered just 2 miles from the gas station, in an area that had already been extensively searched. The circumstances of his death were even more bizarre. His body was found missing nearly all of its internal organs. Authorities were quick to attribute this to scavengers. However, the rest of his body, including common targets of scavengers, was found relatively intact. The cause of death could not be determined and was listed as unknown. Adding to the mystery, authorities were slow to provide details or information, even to Singleton's family. Singleton's disappearance and death have sparked widespread speculation, with many believing he met with foul play due to his race and sexual orientation. You see, Singleton was openly gay. Theories have ranged from illegal organ thieves to a sadistic serial killer, but the truth remains elusive. The missing organs have become a focal point of the case, with many questioning the official narrative that they were removed by scavengers. Why did Singleton leave the safety of the gas station when he knew his friend was coming to pick him up? How could he have gotten lost and died just 2 miles away? If he was targeted by malicious individuals, what was their motive? And what about the missing organs? Was their removal intentional, or was it indeed the work of scavengers? as authorities suggest. The mystery of what happened to Ryan Singleton continues to baffle and intrigue, remaining another eerie enigma of Death Valley. The enigmatic sailing stones of Death Valley. We all know stones are inanimate objects, content to sit wherever they land. Yet, in Death Valley National Park, lie rocks that defy this expectation. These aren't your average pebbles. They're hefty stones, some weighing hundreds of pounds, that appear to move across the barren valley floor, leaving long, winding trails in their wake. The location of these mysterious movers is Racetrack Playa, a smooth, dry lakebed bordering California. Here, the ground itself becomes a detective's board, etched with undeniable proof that the stones have shifted position over time. No one has ever witnessed this movement firsthand, but the trails, sometimes stretching up to 1,500 feet, speak volumes about a strange and captivating phenomenon. The stones themselves are a fascinating mix. Some are composed of dolomite, the same material that forms the surrounding mountains. Erosion has been a relentless sculptor, slowly breaking off these rocky chunks and sending them tumbling down to the playa's flat surface. Others are made of a different material called syenite, hinting at a more distant origin. The mystery deepens when you consider the stone's curious behavior. Rough-bottomed rocks, like those freshly broken from the mountains, tend to leave straight, well-defined tracks. Their uneven undersides act like tiny plows, carving a clear path as they're nudged across the playa. Smooth-bottomed stones, on the other hand, present a different story. Their slick undersides don't offer much resistance, and their tracks often meander and zigzag, suggesting a less purposeful journey. Theories about how these hefty rocks move on their own have been swirling for over a century. Some early ideas lean towards the fantastical, with suggestions of strong winds or even magnetic forces propelling the stones. As science progressed, more grounded explanations emerged. One theory centered on flash floods, proposing that surging water could carry the stones and leave them behind when the water receded. The truth, however, turned out to be a lot more elegant and involved a surprising combination of elements. It wasn't until 2014 that scientists, using time-lapse photography for the first time, were finally able to witness the movement firsthand and confirm a theory proposed back in 1996. During the winter months, Death Valley can experience periods of surprisingly cold temperatures. If enough rain falls, it can create a shallow pond on the playa's surface. As the nights grow colder, this water freezes, forming a thin sheet of ice. Come morning, the sun warms the air, causing the ice to melt and break into large, floating panels. Gentle winds then push these icy sheets across the playa, and here's where the magic happens. If a rock happens to be in the path of a moving ice sheet, it can become trapped against its leading edge. The wind then acts like a giant invisible hand, slowly pushing the stone forward and dragging it along the playa floor. As the ice sheet melts and breaks apart, the rock is left behind, along with a freshly etched track. The mystery, it seemed, was finally solved. But is the case truly closed? Science is a journey of discovery, and new information can always emerge. While the ice theory offers a compelling explanation, the possibility of other factors contributing to the movement of the sailing stones remains open. Subscribers pick. The Death Valley is a place notorious for its scorching heat, desolate beauty, and, well, let's face it, a whole lot of weirdness. Take a look at this photo we found. It shows a gigantic mummy standing upright with its hands folded, flanked by two rather unimpressed-looking men in suits. Hold on a second. Is this some kind of elaborate hoax, or is there something more to the story? Death Valley has long been a breeding ground for legends, from lost mines filled with gold to whispers of alien visitors. Could this be evidence of an ancient civilization or some undiscovered human ancestor? Or perhaps it's a tale involving a lost family and giants of the Wild West? One thing's for certain. This image is sure to spark a firestorm of theories. So, what do you guys think? Is there more to Death Valley than meets the eye? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Solving the Manson mystery. Dick Powell, a determined young ranger with a fresh start at Death Valley National Monument, was jolted awake by the crackle of the radio on a September morning in 1969. The news wasn't good. The park's brand new Michigan loader, a hulking machine tasked with fixing roads near the dry racetrack playa, was engulfed in flames. Reaching the scene, Powell and his crew found the fire dying down, but the damage was already done. An empty gas can and tire tracks leading away confirmed their suspicions. It was clear someone had deliberately set the machine ablaze. As the desert sun beat down mercilessly, Powell and his fellow rangers meticulously combed the crime scene, collecting every scrap of evidence they could find. This wasn't just some random act of vandalism. Someone, or some group, was deliberately targeting their park. Powell soon rallied his National Park Service colleagues, forming a ragtag task force with a small band of California highway patrolmen and deputies from Inyo County. Right from the start, it became evident that the arson at Racetrack Playa was just the tip of the iceberg. An abandoned rental car from Los Angeles lay abandoned near a dusty trail. Further exploration revealed campsites overflowing with trash, discarded food, and tattered clothes. They also followed a maze of tire tracks which led them to a hidden network of stolen vehicles and dune buggies, cleverly concealed beneath the desert brush. Their investigation wasn't confined to physical evidence. Powell and his team tirelessly interviewed anyone with a shred of information: park visitors, weathered miners, and local residents. Every detail, every rumor, was a piece in a puzzle they were desperately trying to solve. Weeks passed, and the ragtag team continued to patrol the vast expanse of the park and surrounding areas. They traveled through treacherous mountain passes, navigated dusty towns seemingly untouched by time, and ventured into rugged canyons. They sacrificed sleep, logging countless overtime hours on stakeouts and long drives. Slowly, a picture began to emerge, bringing with it a sense of unease. Park visitors recounted tales of a group of unruly young people who haunted campsites, their nights filled with the roar of dune buggies tearing through the desert silence. The local sheriff reported encountering a band of hippies peddling marijuana to high schoolers. There were also whispers of a strange cult-like group residing in a dilapidated cabin on the abandoned Barker Ranch. Their leader wore robes and gave weird speeches, and his followers walked around naked. By the second week of October, the pieces had finally clicked into place. Armed with enough information to act, Powell and his team launched a coordinated raid on the Barker Ranch. The scene that unfolded was tense. A small force of park rangers, highway patrolmen, and deputies surrounded the ramshackle buildings. In the ensuing operation, 26 people were apprehended, suspected of a string of crimes: arson, vandalism, and grand theft auto. During the raid, one of the officers stumbled upon the leader of the group hiding under a bathroom sink. The man said his name was Charles Manson. Powell and the officers didn't know it yet, but they had just arrested a man who would soon become synonymous with evil in America. Charles Manson, however, was just a name to them at that point. It would be weeks before they grasped the true significance of their capture. You see, Charles Manson's summer had been far from ordinary. Earlier that year, he had orchestrated a series of brutal murders that left Los Angeles in shock. Actress Sharon Tate, wealthy businessman Leno LaBianca, his wife Rosemary, and several others all fell victim to Manson's twisted vision. Through confessions, witness accounts, and chilling trials, a horrifying picture emerged. These seemingly random acts of violence were all part of a grand, deranged plan. Manson envisioned a race war erupting in America, a chaotic scenario he believed would be his ticket to power. Manson's followers, a devoted group who called themselves the Family, would wait out the mayhem in a hidden desert paradise he believed existed somewhere beneath Death Valley. After the dust settled, they would emerge as rulers of the survivors. By mid-September, most of the family had hightailed it out of Los Angeles, seeking refuge in Death Valley's desolate landscape. They found shelter in ramshackle cabins and abandoned mining outposts, eagerly awaiting Manson's next move. Meanwhile, back in the city, detectives were hitting a dead end. They had mistakenly dismissed any connection between the Tate and LaBianca murders, and leads were drying up fast. Fear and wild rumors swirled through Los Angeles that summer and fall. But down in Death Valley, 250 miles away, news traveled slowly. Even if the park rangers had been glued to the headlines, they wouldn't have made the connection between the scruffy group of young people they'd just arrested and the grisly murders plaguing the city. Fate, however, intervened. Once in custody, one of the women responsible for Sharon Tate's murder couldn't help but brag. She spilled the beans to her cellmates, who, unsurprisingly, wasted no time in informing the guards. This bombshell revelation became the turning point in the case. On December 1st, Los Angeles, authorities made a shocking announcement. The suspects in the Tate LaBianca murders weren't hardened criminals, but a group of hippies led by a charismatic yet delusional prophet named Charles Manson. And to top it all off, they were already behind bars in the Inyo County Jail. Manson and several of his followers were ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder for the deaths of their 9 victims. They were sentenced to death, a punishment later commuted to life in prison when California abolished the death penalty. Manson himself died in 2017 at the age of 83. In the end, the Manson family's gamble to use Death Valley as a hideout backfired spectacularly. The vastness and remoteness of the desert might have seemed ideal, but they underestimated the dedication of people like Dick Powell and his fellow guardians of the desert. Their vigilance, along with a touch of unexpected misfortune, brought the Manson family's reign of terror to a crashing halt. The mystery of the German family. Imagine a scorching summer vacation, not by the beach with cool drinks, but in a place where the relentless sun beats down mercilessly. That's exactly what awaited a German family of 4 who embarked on a trip to Death Valley in July of 1996. This family consisted of 27-year-old Cornelia Meyer, her young son 4-year-old Max, her boyfriend 34-year-old Egbert Rimkus, and his 10-year-old son Georg Weber. They were probably unaware that they were visiting during the worst possible time. Death Valley was in the grip of a record-breaking heat wave, with temperatures soaring to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite the scorching heat, their rented Plymouth van became their home on wheels, a temporary haven from the desert heat as they explored the sights. Eager to learn more about the valley's unique landscape, they stopped at a visitor center, picking up a map and a guidebook, the last known purchases they would ever make. On July 22nd, they stopped at a visitor center, eager to learn more about the unforgiving landscape that stretched before them. They picked up a book and a map, ready to navigate the heat-blasted terrain. This would be the last documented sighting of the family. Weeks passed, and a chilling realization began to dawn. On July 29th, the family never boarded their scheduled flight back to Germany. A search was launched, and a glimmer of hope emerged. Tucked away in a guest book at an abandoned mining ghost town in Warm Springs Canyon, a message scrawled in German hinted at their whereabouts. "We are going through the pass," it read, signed, Connie Egbert Georg Max. This cryptic clue pointed investigators towards Mengel Pass, a rugged and remote dirt road that cut through the desolate southwestern border of the park. However, despite extensive searches, there was no sign of the family. Months passed, filled with agonizing uncertainty. Then, on October 23rd, a breakthrough came from the unlikeliest source, a drug surveillance plane. Flying high above the desolate landscape, they spotted the family's minivan in an isolated sandy ravine, far from any road and completely off the beaten path for tourists. The discovery was a heartbreaker. The van, coated in a layer of dust, stood locked and silent. Inside, investigators found photo film, empty water bottles, sleeping bags, and a travel guide. A small American flag, likely a souvenir, and a single child's shoe was also found. But the most unsettling aspect? There were no personal belongings like wallets, passports, or keys. It was as if the family had simply vanished, leaving behind only remnants of their journey. The vast expanse of Death Valley, once a playground for prospectors and pioneers, now loomed as a menacing giant. Here, a lost family and giants of the Wild West played out a silent tragedy. The mystery deepened further with the absence of any footprints around the van. Had they been taken? Or had they somehow wandered off into the unforgiving desert landscape, succumbing to the harsh elements? The only other detail was a single beer bottle lying nearby. But whether it belonged to the family or someone else remained unknown. A desperate search unfolded in the wake of the van's discovery. Over 200 law enforcement officers from both Nevada and California searched the unforgiving landscape. They trekked on foot, rode horses, and utilized aircraft to search every nook and cranny from above. Yet, the vast expanse of Death Valley yielded no further clues. The German family had vanished like ghosts. For decades, their fate remained a haunting mystery. Whispers and theories swirled like desert sand. Some speculated a nefarious encounter, perhaps with drug smugglers who crossed their paths in the desolate expanse. Others entertained the notion of a staged disappearance, a possibility fueled by the missing personal belongings. The most unsettling theory painted a picture of tragic miscalculation. The family, perhaps seeking adventure, venturing too far off-road, succumbing to the unforgiving heat and relentless environment. But all these were just theories, whispers in the wind, with no concrete evidence to substantiate them. Then, in 2009, a glimmer of hope, tinged with horror, emerged. Two hikers, traveling the treacherous and desolate Mojave Desert, stumbled upon a gruesome discovery. They found human bones, bleached by the relentless sun and partially buried in sand and brush. These remains, an adult male and female, were suspected to be the missing tourists, especially with reports of Cornelia Meyer's identification found nearby. However, the scorching sun had taken its toll, leaving the remains too damaged for a conclusive DNA analysis. Despite this potential link, the identities of the remains remain a mystery. Similarly, the whereabouts of the two children, Max and Georg, have never been determined. The case of the missing German tourists continues to baffle and intrigue to this day. Questions continue to plague investigators and haunt the families back in Germany. Did they fall victim to foul play? Were they kidnapped or killed? And if so, by whom? Perhaps the answer lies in a desperate struggle against the elements, a tragic consequence of a poorly planned adventure. Why did they veer off-road in the unforgiving heat, with seemingly no provisions or adequate water? Was it a reckless pursuit of adventure, a lapse in judgment, or something more sinister? The merciless sun may hold the answers, but for now, the fate of the German tourists remains shrouded in the mysteries of Death Valley. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.